Good day, and welcome to Rana's Weekly Wraps. I am Vav Govender. Obviously, this week we're going to focus on what's happened with regards to the pullback, but first we're going to talk about the latest election results for the US and what it means for that shutdown going forward. So, this week we had an election in the US. We saw, it wasn't a major election. It was like one of those midterm elections, or of course the presidential election, but it was a number of elections that occurred. Important elections included the US mayoral election, where a guy called Solomon Dami won. He has a link with South Africa, so it's interesting to think of that. Then we have, a couple of governorships, and importantly, we also saw an election that included a vote on redistricting in California. And the reason that was important was because there's what's called gerrymandering in the US, and what it does is it allows you to kind of fix the electoral map into a certain way that you basically get your party to win a lot more seats than they always would have. So to give you an idea, about 47% of Californians basically vote Republican each presidential election. So they are Republican voters. But Republicans have almost no congressional seats from California. Why? Because they kind of make a map that's so kind of convoluted that it makes sure that any stronghold for Republicans is diluted by Democrats, and the Republicans don't have enough votes to basically overwhelm any particular seat. So what you do is make sure that if you have 40% of Republicans, make sure that every single district that you create is orchestrated in such a way that Republicans never get above 50% in that particular district. And it's something that's been used in California. It's been used in Texas. California says it's basically in retaliation to what Texas is doing. Texas says it's retaliation to what the Democrats are doing elsewhere. And it's an important kind of like feature of the US system. By the way, interestingly enough, the reason that it's called gerrymandering is because there was some guy whose name was Jerry, and he basically created a map that was so complicated, it looked kind of like a salamander. Gerrymander. That's an interesting aside. So, looking at basically the election wins here, Democrats won across the board. We also saw, interesting enough, a case where a guy who threw a sandwich at an ICE enforcement agent was let off without even a misdemeanor by a jury. Now, why are these things important? Well, if you're a Democrat, what you're seeing is that, hey, people don't hate us, people like us, people are not blaming us for stuff. Now, why is that important? Well, I've told you many times before, when it comes to these particular kinds of events where we have, the shutdown, etc., it's a political decision. It's a decision on both the part of the White House, the Democrat Republicans, and the people in opposition, the Democrats, as to what to do. Either party could end it, really quickly if they wanted to. The Republicans end it by giving in to Democratic demands. The Democrats would end it by just allowing the government to operate as it normally does. Why would they want to do that? They only want to do that if they think they're losing. If they think that this fight is a fight that's hurting them in some way. Now, from what we saw this week, the Democrats are not losing. People don't seem to be blaming them, at least not in a way that's showing up in a election. Now, again, I mentioned that this is not a national election. This is not an election for like senators and Congress people and so on. So you can't really take a real take on what people think about Congress, what people think about the Senate from this particular thing. But it is an election that involves Republicans and Democrats. And the Democrats say, okay, we won quite strongly here. The only question is now, does Trump feel that he's being hurt enough that he needs to do something about this? And I don't think that's the case as yet. I don't think we are seeing Trump believing he's losing by enough. I don't think we see a case where congressional Republicans and Senate Republicans are thinking they're losing by enough to actually, concede to Democrat demands. Boils down to one side got a bit of a tick up, the other side doesn't think they're losing by that much. It continues. So this shutdown will continue until, like I said, somebody believes that they're losing enough. Next, now we have to talk about the pullback we saw this week, but first we'll talk about the gold stocks and what's been happening there, and then we'll move on to obviously the AI tech sector. So the gold stocks pull back. We've seen gold come down quite dramatically. It just broke through $4,000 an ounce again on the other way. We went up to almost 4,400 and we pulled back 10% or so. And we saw a number of these companies, basically the mining companies, pull back quite strongly. Now, understand, the way you look at profitability is not about, oh, the gold price went up 10%, okay, therefore I have 10% more profits. No. remember there are costs involved in producing gold. So let's just say your cost of production is 3,000, dollars an ounce, and the gold price is $4,000. You make $1,000 of profit. If it goes from basically 4,000 to 4,400, well, it's only gone up by 10% in terms of a price. But in terms of your impact on profitability, you were making $1,000, now making $1,400. That's a 40% improvement in price, in profitability. Sorry, that means I make a huge difference to you. And so, obviously, when we see the gold price pull back by 10%, it makes a bigger difference in terms of these stocks than just the percentage change in the price itself. Obviously, I think this is to be expected. We saw gold go from 3,300 to 4,400 almost in a period of about 2 months or so, 2.5 months or so. That is a shockingly quick movement for a commodity like gold. And there is going to be consolidation. But the question is, does the underlying factors, or do the underlying factors that affect the gold price, do they remain? Is the longer term trend going to be positive? I still think it's going to be positive. Why? What are the longer term trends that are causing this? Firstly, the longer term trend that's primarily causing this is basically people's lack of belief in what's been happening with regards to fiat currencies. That's currencies backed by nothing. We've seen rising debt levels internationally in the US, in Europe, elsewhere in the world, and therefore people don't want to be holding currencies or the debt of countries as much as they did in the past. They want a safe haven. They're going towards that. There's also a move away from the dollar, and the dollar has played such a critical part in the global financial system over the last at least 70 years, since the end of World War II, slightly before that as well. But left in the end of World War II, the dollar became the de facto currency of the world. People don't realize this, but after World War II, the US had like half the world's GDP. Everywhere else in the world was destroyed. All the places that you think of as being really powerful right now, China, Europe, Japan, these were all places that were the brunt of World War II. We didn't see much damage done to the infrastructure and capacity of the US to produce. So the US came out of World War II really powerfully, and therefore built the economic system of the world to basically suit its needs. And that's why the dollar was, the currency that everybody used for everything. That's why the financial institutions of the world are basically controlled by the Americans, because they created it after World War II. Anyway, obviously, with what's been happening with Trump, what's been happening in the globe, with things like the rise of China, this is changing. The Chinese want to have their own system. The Chinese want to have their own financial network, etc. They don't want to be so dependent on the dollar. They're moving away. Even with what's happened with Russia and the Ukraine, the Russians basically set to lose hundreds of billions of dollars worth of assets. Why? Because they had those assets in certain things that they're controlled by the Americans. The amazing thing here is that if they had just kind of like Putin had just kind of leaked to his Minister of Finance, we are going to do this thing and get our stuff out of American and European hands. It would have been a huge difference in terms of the situation at the moment. It's just like to get the money away from the Americans and the Europeans, bring it home, and then invade Ukraine. That would have been a smarter thing to do. But hindsight is 2020. Who knows? But the system is changing, and if the system is changing, people are going to look for alternatives. And what's the alternative to the dollar? Well, you can go for Bitcoin, but you can also go for gold. And gold's been around for a long time, so therefore gold's rising. And then there's the third factor, which I've pointed out many times, so people may be ignoring, which is the rise of India and China. These are two cultures that love gold, especially India. India has more gold in private hands than the US has in its reserves, and the European Union has in its reserves combined. There's a lot of gold. And this is just private hands. You make those people wealthier. Are they going to buy more gold? Yes, they are. It's a cultural thing. It's something that they want to be doing. And China as well has got wealthier, more gold demand. And therefore, all these factors, in my belief, are going in one direction. And so gold might pull back in the short term. We may see, a return to, even below 4,000 for a while. But the longer term trend is going to be, upwards for gold. Next, moving on to the AI pullback. Now, this has been a bit more worrisome. Why? Well, the amount of money spent on AI at the moment dwarfs any other speculative investments humanity has ever done in history. There's never been a thing like AI before. not just from the technological point of view, and which is important. And I do believe that if you do get AI, it's different from other inventions. It's not like inventing the steam engine. It's not like inventing electricity. It's like inventing fire. It's something that fundamentally will change what it means to operate as a human being in the world. And we are, probably, if these guys are right, less than a decade away from getting that. I mean, it's a shocking amount of time. A decade away, think about it, 2015. Imagine between 2015 and now, the world had changed in ways that were unrecognizable. And that's what we expect to happen, in the next 10 years. Or what is expected to happen next 10 years. But this amount of money that people are pumping into this particular idea, because they think this is correct, they think that the next 10 years is a pivotal 10 years in humanity's history, is absolutely gigantic. Okay, to give you an idea of how big it is, Microsoft is $100 billion going towards AI investment. This is the amount they're going to be spending on AI infrastructure, etc. Now, to understand what that means, what that actually involves, Microsoft doesn't get all the benefit of the AI it puts out in the world. Let's just say Microsoft goes off and basically creates an AI that creates $1 trillion of value in the world. How much money would flow back to Microsoft? Maybe somewhere around 30 and $50 billion. The majority of the value that Microsoft creates goes and does things elsewhere. It's one of those things like, people don't want AI for AI's sake. It wants AI for the stuff it does for them. You want AI to do things for you. You want AI to basically add value to your life. You don't just want the AI to exist. It's not like a piece of jewelry. So, I want the jewelry. You want the AI to do stuff. And you're not going to pay money for the AI unless it does something that's more valuable than what you're paying. And historically, we've seen with software that ratio is like 20 to 1. Okay, at least sometimes it's 30 to 1. So for the $100 billion that Microsoft is putting away, we need somewhere between $2 and $3 trillion worth of value added in the world. What is $3 trillion? I'm just giving you an idea. $3 trillion is roughly the GDP of France. That's a lot of money. Okay, that's just Microsoft. Meta is almost as big as Microsoft. So you can add another, maybe say somewhere close to France's GDP again. Then you have to do it for Amazon. Then you're going to do it for a number of other places as well. This is a lot of Francis to add to the world. You know what I mean? This is a very, very a large amount of money. So that's one aspect to it. The second aspect to it is this. I've come to the belief, and this is not like backed by other stuff out there, but I think it makes sense. That a lot of stuff that AI is really good at doing is stuff that does not add value to the world. What do I mean by that? AI does things like, for instance, white-collar work. A lot of white-collar work is compliance. It's basically accounting. It's auditing. It's law. It's that kind of stuff. It's, emails, reading emails, writing emails, that kind of thing. PowerPoint presentations and so on. The world does not get better if every PowerPoint presentation is 100 times better. Why? Because PowerPoint presentations tend to be like antagonistic. They, you present one case, you present the other case, they cancel each other out. If somebody comes with a brilliant presentation, the other guy comes with a terrible presentation, you go with the guy with the brilliant presentation. Two guys come in with brilliant presentations, which is better, Law cancels each other out. You have two lawyers, both are 10 times smarter, they cancel each other out. Auditors, accountants cancel each other out. Because auditor is better, accountant is better, there's no difference in the world. Even if things like, for instance, AI songs and AI video, well, the video is a bit behind, but the songs are already there. If you ever want to see, be impressed by AI right now, go and listen to covers of modern songs done in the style of the 1960s. Look, I'm not old, I'm not from the 1960s, of course, but I appreciate that kind of music. And you cover some not modern songs in that style, and it sounds to me really good. I would listen to this stuff, and in fact, I have listened to this stuff. We've seen an AI artist being signed for I think $3 million by a record company. I've listened to the song that the AI artist she produces, and they don't. If no one told me, I would think this is not just a passable artist. I would think this was a very good artist. Obviously, AI can sing any note, can hold any note for as long as you want to, have any tone you want to. So, you can have as great a tone as Adele if you want to. But also the lyrics make sense. It's a very clever little song. It actually charted on the Billboard charts. But remember, there's only so many songs that people listen to. If you like this song, you don't like another song. You're not listening to both songs. There's only a certain amount of time you spend listening to music. There's always a number one song in the world. The Beatles may be better than Elvis, depending on your opinion. But, when Elvis was number one, he sold. When Beatles number one, they sold. That is how things go. So that's not adding value to the world. You may like better music, but you're not going to have more value, more GDP because the music is better. So where is this value going to come from that's going to justify this hundreds of billions of dollars of capital investment that needs to have trillions, maybe tens of trillions of dollars in additional GDP growth coming from it? And tens of trillions of dollars, it's like, remember, there's roughly $100 trillion of total GDP in the world. $10 trillion is 10% of global GDP. Where are you going to get that from, if you're not going to have it from here? And that is what I think people are worrying about right now, is that we have a lot of spending, we have this belief in the future, we just don't yet have the AI systems that are doing the things that are going to add on value to the world. But is this the case that's going to be forever? No, of course not. We are starting to see the first signs that AI is doing something that will add GDP to the world. What is that? Scientific invention. We are starting to see the first AIs. It's a glimmers. It's not guaranteed yet. The ways we know this is happening is because we have labs that have come out with publications that come after the AI has been trained, and the AI has figured the same thing out that the lab has figured out. So you have a lab finding a result, but the AI was trained before the lab, published its results, and the AI basically had that result as well from the data it had. So there is scientific innovation happening, just the start of it. Scientific innovation does add to the world. You invent electricity, you increase GDP. You invent the steam engine, you increase GDP. There'll be inventions coming from AI that could do those kind of things, and those are things that could be valuable. We're already starting to see also, especially in the biotech sector. That's why in the AI portfolio I have Eli Lilly and Novartis, because I do think that there's a huge possible boom coming at pharma because of AI. Eli Lilly, by the way, is one of the most entrenched companies in the AI sector. Building supercomputers with NVIDIA and so on. Those are the kind of things where we will see GDP growth happening. So short term, there's trouble, there's questions. Long term, I think it is going to be positive. Then there's also one more thing to be discussed, which is Sam Altman basically went out and did a interview with a guy called Tyler Cowen, in which he kind of maybe made a mistake, but maybe it's a slip of tongue that reflects the reality. We discussed the possibility of the US federal government backstopping investments. Now, why would they do that? If AI actually is, like for instance, essential to national security, like for instance, aeroplanes are, the US government can't allow Boeing to go bankrupt because it depends on Boeing to build its airplanes for the US Air Force. If that's the case, if they really do think that AI is that important, they would probably have to backstop the AI companies. They have to say, we will make sure that even if this doesn't work out in the short term, we will not go bankrupt. If you look at hundreds of billions of dollar investments to backstop this, to make sure that you catch up or keep ahead of China, maybe these guys get a little nervous. In that scenario, it might be necessary to backstop because the Chinese government is backstopping their companies. It's telling them to invest. You know what I mean? And you can't have a one-sided wallet that when it comes to investment and expect to win long term. And so that is something to be looked at as well. What form that will take, I don't know. But I do know if that is the case, the guy that really does benefit is Jensen Huang. Because NVIDIA might be OpenAI might be in trouble if they are backstopped. Anthropic and all those other companies might be in trouble if they're backstopped. But what does backstop means is just you're going to continue buying NVIDIA chips, and NVIDIA does not need a backstop because it's the guys that gets paid. So that is if you are looking at one way to play that particular thing, don't look at it as OpenAI is getting backstopped by the government. The government's going to step in and make sure OpenAI doesn't go bankrupt. No, the guys that own OpenAI will go bankrupt. OpenAI might continue going forward. Like for instance, we had the stuff that happened in the 2008 financial crisis where shareholders suffered, but the company continued. But the guy that supplies to OpenAI, NVIDIA, that guy continues getting paid. And I think if you're playing that backstop, play through NVIDIA and play through the supplies of the chips. Okay, that's it for this week. Thanks for joining me. Look forward to speaking again next week. Cheers.